What's up, guys? This is Wayne Watley, and I'm back. And all the videos have been about Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and I really don't have much to say about that. Personally, I like Bernie Sanders as a person. I think he's honest. I don't think he's a tool, but I don't really care much for what he thinks about healthcare, about anything that involves more government, and things like that. So I don't really have a lot of say in that. I sure as hell don't like Hillary Clinton, though. And now I want to talk a little bit about the Republicans. We're missing out on that. I'm not a Republican, but I do keep an eye on the Republicans and Democrats. I used to be a Republican, and then I was a Libertarian, and then I slipped into anarchy. So just to talk a little bit about what happened, I used to be very political. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a reason why I think all this is bullshit now. And I hope after today's video, you'll kind of understand, even if you don't agree with me, you'll kind of understand where I'm coming from. You see, I was actually a state delegate in Louisiana in 2012 for Ron Paul. I was an avid Ron Paul supporter. I have been since 2007, since I first heard he was running for president. Of course, I was too young in 1988 when he ran as a Libertarian, but then again, I didn't even know who Ron Paul was at that time. But in 2012, we had our state convention, and a majority of the people were there as delegates for Ron Paul. Of course, they had a meeting before the convention to elect the people who were going to do the meeting, you know, the chairman and all that stuff. And there were some Ron Paul people elected into the chair. And it really upset the Republican establishment, because the Republican establishment, period, was not for Ron Paul.
I'm not the chair, I'm the Rules Committee chair, so I'll be giving my report at this time. The Rules Committee met at 11 a.m. yesterday on...
Mr. Chairman, this is not a chairman of the Rules Committee. The chairman of the Rules Committee was elected yesterday after the Rules Committee. This gentleman...
Scott Wilfong is the chairman of the Rules Committee.
He is not the chairman of the Rules Committee. All due respect, sir, that we voted. There was a vote at the Rules Committee yesterday.
This is not debatable.
The majority of members...
It's not debatable. He is the chairman of the Rules Committee, and I'm asking him to give it. I would ask you to sit down and have the quorum. We told you to sit down. I'm asking you to sit down.
The Republican establishment in Louisiana was especially not for Ron Paul. They were for Mitt Romney.
That chairman was removed. That chairman was voted out. He was voted out.
You can see a divided convention where some of us are turned one way, having our own convention, and some of us are turned this other way.
Please turn that microphone off. That microphone.
Turn your mic off. Nationwide, this is your
Y'all speaking, but you have to turn the microphone off.
You are not the chairman. You are not the chairman.
Having the real convention. But our real convention, that was most of the people in there, did not count. The person who was on the stage at the platform with the microphone was the one that counted. And so security even got in on this, and of course security, being the mindless drones that they are, taking orders, that's a whole other video. I'm sorry.
Sergeant Owen, I'd like to have this gentleman escorted out. He's not gonna.
Yes.
Please leave.
I call for a vote to have the chairman.
There's not.
Vacate the chair. Second.
There was violence in this meeting. It was a crazy meeting.
We're asking you, security, I need to chair.
Look, there's no chairman. Not the chair. Get it on video.
Stop. I can't stand up. I cannot stand.
From this point on, I'm telling you, Ron Paul had a plurality in many states, not a majority. Well, he had a majority in Louisiana. I don't know about other states. He may have. But he had a majority in Louisiana. He had a plurality in a lot more states. And at this time, the rules, in 2012, the rules for the Republican convention were that you had to have a plurality, which a plurality, it means whoever has the most delegates, even if it was just 30% or something. You know, if there were 10 candidates, whoever had the most, obviously it'd be harder for someone to get a majority, which is 50.1%. So it was a plurality of at least 5 states. Their name could be on the ballot at the convention, and a lot of Ron Paul delegates were going to convention. Well, before that, they decided to change the rules to where no longer was it a plurality in 5 states, but now we're going to make it a majority in 8 states. That way they could not take any of the momentum away from their pick of Mitt Romney. So now, when you look at this year and how supposedly the Republican establishment doesn't want Donald Trump, which I don't really know if that's true or not, but let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say they really don't want Donald Trump. Well, they've screwed themselves out of getting anybody else in there, because if Donald Trump wraps up the delegate count, there's no one else that's going to be able to contest against him. Ted Cruz only got a majority in 2 states, Utah and Wyoming. There was very few states where anybody actually got a majority, actually, because of how many candidates there's been. I see this infighting about people saying, well, you need to vote for the Democratic candidate even if it's Hillary Clinton, or else Donald Trump's going to win. And it's funny, living down here in the South, hardly anybody doesn't really want Hillary Clinton, in my neighborhood anyway, to be the next president. They're saying, well, we can't vote for a third party because Donald Trump is going to be the... you can't vote for a third party because Hillary Clinton will win. It'll divide the votes away from Donald Trump. Well, why the hell is Donald Trump any better? So do you see why I think all of this is bullshit? Because it's all about the network. It's all about the good old boy network that we have. I know in this state, and I'm sure in your state, if you live in the United States, that it's the same thing. There's a good old boy network, and they're going to get done what they want done, and it doesn't matter how the hell you vote. Can't you see this with what's going on in New York right now with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and all this crap going on with voter fraud? Guys, this is not a conspiracy theory. And this has been going on at least since 2008, whenever I was really involved in politics. I was involved really heavily in 2008 and in 2012. And let me tell you, Ron Paul could have had a lot more momentum, but it was quelched by the Republican National Committee. I'm not saying he would have won fair and square. There were a lot of people who didn't like or understand Ron Paul, but he could have gotten a lot further, and he could have actually technically have gotten the nomination because of how many Ron Paul delegates went to convention. So I see all this, and I see that all these parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, they're one big joke. It's a sham, all of it. That's what I think now. I've had a bad taste in my mouth. In fact, I had a friend of mine who was at that convention 4 years ago, called me up last month. Now he's a Trump supporter. He called me to apologize at how they treated us. He was a Romney supporter then, and I was a Ron Paul supporter. He called me about a month ago, and he said that he apologized for how they treated the Ron Paul supporters at the Louisiana convention 4 years ago, because now the same shit's happening to him as a Trump supporter. So all of this, to me, is a charade. Voting is just a way to kind of throw us serfs a bone. It's just a way to, just make us feel like we've got a little bit of control. But the establishment is going to put in there whoever they want to put in there. And don't be fooled into thinking that Donald Trump is not a part of the establishment. And for all the libertarians watching this who are excited about the Never Trump movement, I wouldn't get your hopes up. They're not the people who are for that movement. They may not want Trump, but they definitely don't want Gary Johnson or any of the people running as a libertarian. They want another neocon, and they want a new establishment puppet. They want to divide the vote. I believe Hillary Clinton is probably going to be our next president. Talk to you guys later.
This world will pass away. Give my emotions with them, why should I